Hey guys, I'm really excited to be back today. I've got a very special guest, and I know I say that a lot, but today I've been like looking forward to this interview for since we scheduled it, and just very thankful to get this gentleman on. He's someone that's built a company with his partner that is larger than most other companies you're ever going to come across. And I met Joe Williams with Keller Williams, the Joe Williams of Keller Williams in California at an event. We got a chance to talk, and just a really fun guy, very genuine guy, but an extremely experienced entrepreneur and real estate guy. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him about a lot of the things that he's done over his career, his life. And I think you're going to see really fast. He's a great storyteller and a very fun guy. So, Joe, thank you again for being on this show. It's I know we're going to be able to bring a lot of value to the listeners today. So, thanks again for doing this.
Hey, Mario, happy to do it. I'm just laughing. This is a classic example of the people you meet at a bar when you're at a
Yeah.
convention.
Like, hey,
'Cause if
man.
I'm not mistaken, we were both ordered drinks and got to talking and going, "Hey, man, what do you do?"
Yeah. I'm like, I invest in trailer parks. And he's like, well, own the largest real estate brokerage company in the world, you know?
We love trailer. We love the trailer park space. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no question.
exactly. So if you guys don't know, which I'm sure everybody knows who Joe is, but Keller Williams is the largest real estate brokerage by volume of agents in the world. And I'm going to throw out some stats here. And I actually had to confirm these before we got started because they were so big. I didn't want to get it wrong. And in 2023, sales volume was $473 billion in 1 year. That's a $500 billion in real estate sales globally. His company's in 54 countries, 2,500 commercial agents, and over 200,000 resi agents. So like brain explosion there. And we're gonna dive right into this. All right, but I just wanted everybody to understand what's been built here, so they understand where you're coming from. Can you just give us kind of an idea? It's 1983. You and Gary Keller are coming together, and you're starting this future global behemoth. How does all this come about? I mean, you started out as a young agent too, right? Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it's Gary and I often laugh, Mario, because I mean, here we are, two guys. We both have degrees in real estate. From him from Baylor, me from the University of Texas. Of course, I would tell you that $5 gets you a cafe mocha because real es- real estate's a street business. You learn it by doing it,
Yeah.
and like a lot of service businesses, there isn't any big secret to how it's done. I just laugh when I get with my friends here in Austin, Texas, the heart of technology, this in Silicon Valley, and they start talking about what they're doing in the latest software and AI and all this stuff. And I'm laughing because I can take a relatively intelligent person and within 60 hours of instruction, get them set up to where they can go out there and write a real estate contract, find the financing, basically get done what you need to do. There's nothing complicated about that part of the real estate business. Your success totally tied to other things. A lot of it, your ambition, your discipline, I mean, where you're trying to go, that's everything. But Gary and I were both real estate agents, and we worked for a really good broker. In fact, I know his brother very well. He and I graduated together in San Antonio. Both ended up at the University of Texas, and he used to tell me all the time, "You need to go to work for my brother," and so I did, and met Gary, and Gary and I got to be good friends. I think we admired each other's work discipline more than anything. And so when we made the decision to start the company, when you're starting a real estate company, honestly, you have no idea where it's going to go. I mean, all you're trying to do is go, okay, I had 8 years experience. Gary had 6. Gary done a lot of managing. He really loved the management area. I really loved the sales area. And I think in those early days, we were very good partners with each other because of that. We also have very different personalities. Gary's very much a visionary, sharp as a tack, good planner, and I'm much more a hard guy. Love to train, love to close deals. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's interesting when you look at successful companies, it doesn't matter what industry. A lot of the very best companies started out with generally a couple of people. And the two people, whoever got together as partners, they were a good fit for each other. And that's really what Gary and I had early on. We opened in 83 and we weren't doing anything spectacular except coming up with some very good ideas about real estate. By the way, they're not the ideas that drove the company's growth. They were just, how do we build a better mousetrap?
Yeah.
Okay. What policies can we change that are better for the agents? And life was good. We had about, I guess, 50, 60 agents or so in a single office. And then the 1986 crash hit. And you have to understand, this crash really only impacted Texas, Louisiana, Colorado, and Oklahoma. It was primarily oil driven. Oil dropped to $7. All of a sudden, the banks, who at that time, the savings and loans, had the ability to be in the development business. They could run two organizations, one of which just did development, gave money to developers, got half the profits. It was a really nice deal until the market collapses. So when the market collapsed, you have the savings and loan crisis, which a lot of people read about now.
Mm-hmm.
We lived it, and it was bad. Take 07, 08, 09 and multiply it by 2. That's what this recession was like. We lost every bank we had in Austin. Wow. Every bank, except for one. And the only reason we didn't lose him, he didn't make any real estate loans. He was fine. But everybody, I'm talking all the big banks too. Government stepped in, they formed the Resolution Trust Corporation, what we call the RTC, and they auctioned off everybody's assets. Incredible. What's funny is they didn't do that in 07, 08, 09 because of the lessons that they learned in 86 to 90 in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Colorado. So when it really got bad, and our board of realtors went from 6,500 members to 2,000. Think about that a minute.
Yeah. That's
we lost close to 4,500 real estate agents. All of a sudden, Gary and I sat down and said, you know what? We got to rethink this. And the rethinking for us didn't have anything to do with buyers and sellers. Nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with us and our relationship with our agents. And so what we did was we totally revamped how they worked with us. And all of those changes that we made turned out to be so cool that 3-4 years later, we looked at each other and said, you know what? We probably can franchise this. And that's exactly what we did. And franchising is just a really cool business concept, provided you have a product that is franchisable.
Sure.
Kind of like we've always said about new ideas. Will the dog eat the dog food? Yeah. If the dog won't eat the dog food, it doesn't matter. But we started opening up around Texas and started having early success. Now, by the way, made lots of mistakes in the process. In fact, I don't know, you probably never heard this story, but in 93, we had 60 offices. And these are all franchise-owned offices. We don't own them. Sure. Our operating partners own them. And we hired a guy, Bain Hinion, God bless him. He died with COVID, during COVID, Good guy, though, really good guy. He comes down, he interviews all 60. He interviews Gary. And he comes back and he says, you know what? I love your ideas. I love how you're And by the way, Mario, no one used this word back then. He says, I love how you're disrupting the whole industry.
Nice.
Nobody ever used that word. Now it's common.
Sure.
But we were changing things in a big way. And so he said, I love those ideas, but you guys don't know anything about franchising. That's not quite how he put it. I can't say to your listeners what he said, but he was right. And he said, franchising is all about models and systems. Okay. So I'm going to teach you, by the way, it could take me 18 months, but I'm going to teach you how you develop the models and systems that a franchise, it doesn't matter what your franchise, any franchise needs to be doing these things. The very first thing he taught us was, how do you go find talented operators? In other words, how do you go find talented people?
Yes.
Hire them, keep them. I mean, I've always said there's 4 basic ideas that every company needs to figure out to be successful. And one of them is, how do we go get the best people?
It's huge.
I mean, it's huge. If you're running an RV park, and you know this, if you got a great manager operator who's running it, it's amazing how they never call corporate and complain.
Yeah.
They're talented people. They figure it out.
Right. They're self-sufficient.
So he showed us a 10-step process, how you do this. And it's interesting because last time I was at the Family Office Club for Richard, I covered some of this from the stage. And it was, what are the parts of the 10-step process that go find the most talented people? And I will also tell you, because we really learned that lesson when 07, 08, 09 showed up, Keller Williams was the only company that grew.
Jeez.
Everybody else went backward. But we grew, and it's completely because we had the best operators, period.
Yeah. So let me interrupt for 1 second on that. I'm in that process right now, and I'm looking for a really strong person for my company. And what is the one maybe standout? What is the one standout strategy that you found to find really solid people? Is it, part of their interviewing process, or what is the trick to finding the best people?
I can basically share those steps with you, Mario, later, and we could talk about those. But I'll tell you, one real critical element that he shared with us is, same thing if you've ever heard Dave Ramsey speak from the stage, he'll say the same thing. And that is this: personality matters.
Yeah.
Now, what Bain basically said is this: there's basically 4 personalities out there. And that's it. You can go to seminars sometimes and go, oh, there's 10 personalities. And I've been in a seminar where the guy goes, oh, he's a bear. He's a lion.
He's a bear.
I mean, it's crazy. But if you go back in the 50s and the 60s, there was a series of personality tests that came out. Myers-Briggs, the DISC, the DISC. The DISC is probably one of the best at giving you a very good idea who these personalities are.
Sure.
The D is the CEO driver. Okay. It's Patton. Take the bridge. I don't care how many guys we got to lose. Take the damn bridge. Take the bridge. That's what you want your CEO to do.
Right.
I mean, they're goal oriented. Yeah, they think about people, but not the same way a high I does. And that's the I in the DISC test. The high I, the great manager, the people person, the good trainer, the pat you on the back when you do well. Every organization needs a combination of D drivers and high I people that give it the cohesive love that you got to show in an organization. And then you have the S, and that's the S is all of the administrative people who basically Without them, the company's going nowhere.
They're the ones that do the real work, right?
They're the ones that do the real work.
Right.
Now they need direction. They're
Sure.
patient. They're stable. They're educated. Once they really get a hold of the job and they like it, they're the glue that keeps the organization moving forward. You can't do it without great administrative people, period, in any industry. And then you have your last group, and that's your C's. And the C's are they're the people in life that dot the I's, cross the T's. They're the engineer, they're the surgeon, they're the pilot of the jet. These people, they're very detail oriented, they're OCD oriented.
Yeah.
But in the jobs where you need that, let's face it, there's a lot of jobs where you need that. That's the type of personality. So the first thing Bain said was, look, match the personalities to the specific job description that you're going to do. So, for example, our operating partners, the people that are going to put the office in, hire the manager, their job is three things: provide the capital, provide the accountability, and provide the leadership. And this is where, if you're running a franchise, Mario, I don't care if it's McDonald's, Sonic, Keller Williams, whatever, window washing franchise, your operating partners really need to have a lot of D in them.
Yeah.
They just do. And then what they got to do is then they go hire a manager who's high I.
Yeah.
Who knows how to go out there and can train and do the sales meetings and do the recruiting and really identify with people, especially if you're in a service organization.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is. We don't produce a product.
Yeah.
My guys can sell the same house that the realtor down the street can sell. So it's sure not the product. But I need a high I to be able to create that culture more than anything. It's not the D driver. It's not the CEO. He's not creating the culture. He creates a vision, and here's the path that we need to go, and he holds everybody accountable. But he doesn't create the culture.
Yeah.
That's done by your high I's and your S's working together. Your S's being your administrative people, and then whatever jobs you've got that are detailed. For example, your tech guy. And you got a tech guy working there. We've got a whole tech department. I need them to be C's.
Yeah. Yeah. They need to be in the details. Yeah.
Yeah, they need to be in the details. I can't put an app out there on the dadburn phone that's got bugs all over the place. That doesn't work very well. So that was really the first thing Bain was saying to us. And by the way, so one of the steps in that 10-step process is we give them a personality quiz. We just want to know who they are. And by the way, just to show you how important this is, everybody knows since the pandemic that the idea of working from home or with flex space, everybody is still trying to figure this out right now.
Yeah.
And I was given some advice. I spoke, I think it was the Rotary Club about a year ago. And I said, guys, keep in mind you have 4 personalities out there. 2 of them don't work very well at home.
Yeah.
They don't. And it's not the ones you think. First of all, the CEO can't be at home.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that Jamie Dimon is sitting on the 65th floor of the Chase building right now in downtown New York. He can't work from home. He's got to be there. And the other part I would tell you is all your eyes, they need to be there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, real estate agents can work from home, but you know what? They need to be tied to an office because they like to interact with people. That's the whole thing to an eye. That's how they make decisions. What did other people do? Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was one of our success keys when we went to the agents and said, look, we're not the brand. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop this idea when people are looking for real estate needs that they call a company. They don't do that. They call an agent. They go ask their friends, hey, have you guys got a real estate agent you like? It's like when you have your first baby. You don't say, Oh, I'm going to call the pediatric group down on 35th Street.
Right. You want to know
You
who the best is, you're right,
you
to
call your
work with.
friends, you
Yeah.
go, hey, do you like your pediatrician? You like them, you know? And
Sure.
so we went to the agents and said, okay, if that's how it happens in real life, then let's forget about building our brand and we're going to go build your brand. So
Nice.
everything we do as a company is going to be geared so Mario can build his brand.
Yeah.
I don't even care if I'm on the sign.
Yeah.
Now, by state law, I got to be somewhere on the sign because most state license acts require that.
Yeah.
But I don't care if your name is in big letters, your pictures there, whatever. I want you to build your company. And Mario, that was a big change back in 1983. That's not how most brokers thought.
No, no. Usually it was a big logo with a name. It was more about the company.
Well,
Yeah,
you would think even commercial brokers think that way too.
they do.
I mean, you know what? The CBREs, the JLLs, both fine
Still
companies.
today. Still today.
But you can go talk to Bob Knackel, one of the top JLL guys in New York, when he started building the brand. His brand got so big that JLL didn't like that.
Yeah.
And so they split. And Bob now created his own company or whatever. I laughed. I had dinner with him, you know, in West Virginia, and we were having a good laugh about that because he said, yeah, that's primarily what KW does. It lets the agents go build their brand and it works.
That's awesome.
But
So he basically came in and gave you some guidance on how to build this franchise and do it in a scalable way. And then what happened?
well, what he did, he basically came in and showed us models and systems. And as he said, um, all real estate companies sort of function that way, even if they're not a franchise. If I'm a traditional broker and I'm building offices around, each of my offices need to be able to function correctly. And
Right.
any business is that way. And so what happened was we started learning how to go find the best people. And there's a certain amount of momentum that just starts to occur with that, right? And especially if you change all of your policies, what I've always talked about is the stable table theory. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is if I have a table and I have one leg to the table, how stable is it? Well, it's not. Two legs, it's not. Three legs, it's a stool, but I wouldn't let my grandson on it. But if I've got a table with four solid legs, I know it's solid. So if you look at your business, most businesses, if they can look at the four ingredients that run their business and figure out how to get those agreements to work in synergy with each other, that's just very powerful. And for most businesses and for realtors, the first question is, okay, why are we doing this? I mean, why are we in business?
Yeah.
Why do I get up in the morning? What's my goal here? Other than to stay alive. If I want to work, what's the goal of the operation?
Sure.
Because I'm a firm believer that once you really transfix your vision into something everybody can believe in, well, now you can go someplace.
Yeah.
It's the compass. It's Southwest Airlines way back in the 70s going, you know what? You can't fly in state in Texas. It was impossible to get from Houston to Dallas. And so they bought three planes and they stuck them in the air. And all they did was fly between the three cities constantly. But because they used the same plane and it was a good plane, and they went and hired great people, and it really worked well. I mean, they knew what their four ingredients were. But the first one was, hey, we're gonna figure out a way to get around in these towns, and we're gonna do it interstate. And then later, they started going outside the state.
Sure.
But they said, we're going to create a great flying experience for people. And it's going to be a reasonable cost. And we can figure out better economics. We don't have to charge them for the luggage, we can let them change their flights. And that was for them, that was the second leg, which was better economics.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we create better flying economics for us so that we're profitable? And let me tell you something. We told our guys, look, for us, the second table leg was going to be, how can we figure out better economics for you guys and for us? I want y'all to be highly profitable, but we got to be profitable too.
Yeah.
So we came up with some really great ideas about doing that. One of them was we ran bigger offices. And nobody normally did that. Most average brokers had 30 people in their office. We were running offices with 130.
Jeez, that's a lot of agents. That's a lot of cats to herd.
Well, the point was our ideas were so good to the agents that they kept coming.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we looked around, and I mean, I have a Southwest office down here. This is a great story. I was in Washington, D.C., probably 15 years ago, I guess. And I wasn't there on business. It was a personal thing. My wife and I were there. And I met a manager. He was with Long and Foster, great company up in the Northeast, big independent. And he says to me, he says, Joe, he says, I've heard you guys always have really big offices. And I said, well, you're right, Chuck. He said, how big is your biggest office? I said, that would be our original office in Southwest Austin. He said, how many agents you got? I said, I think it's got 700 agents. I know, and he looks at me and he goes, Joe, I've never heard of an office with 700 people. And my stock answer, Mario, is the same. I looked at him and I said, and your point is? And he just died laughing because he got it.
Yeah.
He got it. I mean, what I've always said is if big is organized, it can be very powerful.
Yes.
If it's unorganized, it's chaos. So the key question is, as we grew, how do we keep this thing organized? I mean, I don't want to make this analogy, but Walmart figured out the same thing.
Yeah.
They said, we're not going to go into the towns and compete with those guys. We're going to go in all these smaller towns and hone our skills as to first-in-time inventory. They were the first ones. They didn't have to inventory. They knew at the cash register because it was all coded. They knew when they needed to order widgets.
Yep.
Nobody from the store had to call. They knew that on a computer. Nobody was doing that. And so they got so good at being able to hold lower prices, they were able to eventually go into these big towns and just give the local guys fits.
Yeah.
Because it was organized, highly organized. And so what we did is we said, look, we can run a bigger office. And by doing that, it's far more profitable for us. In fact, it's so profitable that we went back to our agents in about 91, 92 and said, hey, we got a neat idea. How about we come up with a profit share program, and it's based on things that you're already doing and not collecting any money for. And they said, what are you talking about? We said, well, what if we do this? What if you recruit an agent and they're going to make a nice commission split? The company's going to make a little money. What if we take some of that money out of what the company is making and we give it to you for having brought them on board? I mean, it's all about people, right?
Yeah.
And they said, we think that's a great idea. And then we said,
I bet they did.
and then we said, and watch this. What if that person brings in another person? Guess what? We can do it again. And some of them are pretty smart. They said, well, wait a minute, that's like a multi-level deal. We said, yeah,
Yeah.
it is. But keep in mind, it only occurs, number one, if the office is profitable. If the office has no profit, then there's no profit to share. Y'all understand that, right? Yeah. And then the second thing is, as we got highly profitable, we were able to go to them, and we call it capping commissions. And by that, I mean, in Austin, Texas, once they've sold 5 homes here, maybe 6,
Yep.
they keep 100% of the commission. We call it capping the commission. Now, they do it for the remainder of their accounting year. It resets every year.
Right.
Because obviously I got to make some money.
Yeah, you can't go forever without getting paid, right?
I can't give them all the money.
Right.
But we said to them, look, if you let us run these larger offices, then we've got more people to be able to pay our bills. And we can come back and give you guys the most unheard of commission program you've ever seen. And they loved it. So as long as the agent they recruited has not hit their cap yet, then our guys get profit share off of them because we're still getting profits from them. So here's what's incredible. Last month, we hit a milestone where we paid over $2 billion in profit share checks back to our agents since we formed.
So
that's incredible.
So you shared $2 billion in profit with your agents.
With
Guys,
the agents.
think about the numbers there. That's massive.
And that's a huge number. And understand, they're not doing anything they hadn't done before, Mario. Every agent, I mean, if I'm working in a traditional company that's not Keller Williams, and I've got 6 vacant desks, every time I got a sales meeting, I go, guys, bring me some people.
Yeah.
I mean, these 6 vacant desks are costing me and you money. So bring me somebody. And so it was just our way of saying, look, we think this is a good way to grow the company. Because look at the example I gave an agent the other day. I said, if you bring me an agent who hits their cap, in other words, they do 5 or 6 deals, and they're on your front line, in other words, you recruited them, they're on your first line.
Yep.
They're going to make about $1,400 in profit share during the year on that agent because they get paid as their deals close. So I looked at him and I said, let me ask you a question. How hard is it to save to make $1,400 out of money that you have in the savings account? I mean, let's run that number.
Yeah.
You can tell I've been in business for a long time. I'm using an HP.
That's OG style right there.
Yeah. So here's $1,400. How much am I going to make in the savings account now? 3%?
Probably 3%, 4 in a real high interest savings.
Here we go. Okay, they'd have to have $46,000 in the bank to make $1,400 in interest. Yeah. So what's easier? Acquiring $46,000 after tax money in a savings account, or recruiting an agent? Yeah. And by the way, they don't have to do the recruiting. That's the team leader's job. They just got to set up the appointment. Source them. Yep. I want to pause right here because a lot of people may know this, maybe don't know this, but my career started in network marketing when I was in high school with a pretty large company and did very well with it for about 2.5 years before they ended up filing bankruptcy. But the point is that what you did is you got your sales team, your managers, meaning your operating partners, and your corporate company all in alignment. And you got everybody going in the same direction for the same result. And everybody got compensated through that pipeline, through that downline, right? And you had massive momentum from it because now you're doing the multiplication game. Now you're doing the multiplication game. You're not doing the duplication game. You're not going out and recruiting individuals. They're out recruiting. And it's interesting that you weren't necessarily focused on the real estate sales. You were focused on the team, really, on the people. Well, here's a great story. When we started the company early, there's a good friend of ours. He was an ER doctor. He said something to me that was so profound. Totally. He heard the KW story and he said, you know, Joe, something I've realized about the medical profession. He said, hospitals don't have patients. Doctors do. Yes. But a doctor can't function without a well-designed surgical center. And that's when he looked at us and he said, what you and Gary need to create is the hospital. Your agents are your doctors. Yes. Who have their patients. So he said, what you guys need to do is concentrate on giving them all the same things that a good hospital gives to its doctors. And Mario, that was it. It was that simple. We sat there and went, Oh my God, he's right. He's right. We don't need to be the brand. They need to be the brand. They're the
Yeah.
ones out there looking for the people. We just need to be able to give them the technology, the training, the facilities, uh, and do it in a way that we can help them think like owners.
Yeah.
And you think about this. I just traveled to Ann Arbor this last weekend to watch Texas play Michigan. And one of the things we did on Friday, it was great, was we went to the Henry Ford Innovation Museum in Dearborn. And then they gave you a 2-hour tour of the River Rouge Ford facility.
Mm-hmm.
And you're walking on the catwalks and looking down on the assembly floor. I mean, if you've never done it, it is incredible. And what kept going through my mind was what a smart guy Henry Ford was, because back in, I guess it was 1915 or something, he turned around and in one day changed the life of that whole company by saying, I'm going to double everybody's pay from $5 a day to $10 a day, because he realized, number one, now all of his workers could afford to buy his cars and they could buy homes and they could do all that. I mean, he created the middle class right there.
Literally.
And that gets back to what I call the fourth leg of most businesses, Mario. It's one very important. And that, for us, it was vision, better economics, how to run the company, go get the best people. That was leg number 3 for us. Leg number 4 was go create an environment that's so cool to get up and go to work for, they never have to leave.
Yep.
And that's true of any company. I don't care what company you're operating. If I can get the people that come to work for me to think like they're owners, I can take over a massive market share. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. Plumbing, pool cleaning, brain surgery, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Go create a culture that's so cool. And part of what Bain shared with us in the 10-step process, one of those steps was creating a future self. And what it was me interviewing you to find out where you're headed in life. And am I, as a company, can I help you get there?
Sure.
And so you spent about a good hour with the candidate really talking about their needs and where they want to go. It's kind of like when you sit down with people and you say, well, what's your goal in taking this job? Well, I want to make a lot of money. Well, okay, well, let's talk about that. What does that mean? What is a lot of money? And it's usually not the money. It's what are you going to do with it?
Exactly.
Right? I mean, it's all about what does money do? And it's really interesting because we've noticed this when we recruit a really top agent from another company. Quite often when they're in there having those discussions, well, what's my commission rate and what are my expenses? And the dollar this, dollar that, that's where they want to go. But yet if they join you and 3 years later you go to them and say, why are you here? It's never about the money.
Nope.
It's not about the money. I
So
love the
true.
people I'm working with. I see my future. I see opportunity. I mean, this job is going to allow me, and I love this, and you can appreciate this. I'm 71 years old now. My kids are, late 30s, early 40s. All I'm concentrating on now is the grandkids.
Yeah.
And it's everything that everybody tells you it's going to be, right? And so, I've got grandsons, and now I've got a granddaughter, another one on the way. I'm thinking about them all the time. I mean,
Sure.
I don't need to be working right now. I'm already rich. But of course, I enjoy what I'm doing, so I do it anyway.
Sure.
Because it was never about the money. Even when
You're
Gary and I
building something.
when we put the company together, it wasn't about the money. It was about there's got to be a better way to run a real estate company. Let's go figure this out. That it was all about that.
Yeah.
We knew the money would come. We're much more concerned about how do you go make it work. And so his whole mantra to us is when you go hire a leader, a really good person, you've got to dig deep to find out how your two futures align.
It's the alignment.
And I got to tell you, by that time I'd been in business, oh gosh, 10, 12 years. And it occurred to me, no one did I ever remember anyone sitting me down saying, here's how you interview people. You with me?
Oh, yeah.
We all do it. But if you think about it, it's not like you took a class at college interviewing 101.
Yeah.
And Gary and I kind of looked at each other and said, you know what? He's right. I mean, and so he gave us the application, and here's the steps, and here's how you verify. I'll give you this one. This was great. He said, look, when somebody walks in, they fill in an application and it asks for, let's say, 5 references, right? What do you think those references are going to say when you call them? Oh,
Awesome.
Mario, he's the bomb. He's the bah, 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 bah. And so what he taught us was, he said, okay, that's great. When you call and you say, well, Chuck, can I ask you a question? Is there anybody else you know who knows Mario? Oh, yeah, that'd be Richard Gary, good guy. Oh, what did y'all work? Yeah, we were all at Nortel together. You happen to have Richard's number? Yeah, hang on a minute. Okay, and so now what am I going to do? I'm going to call Richard. Hey, Richard, I'm calling about Mario. Oh, yeah, man. Geez, I can talk him in the coon's age. What? How did you get my number? Well, I got your number from Richard Gary. Oh, yeah, man. Richard, great guy. We go to church together. Yeah. Yeah. What? Have you got 5 minutes? Yeah, sure. Yeah. What do you want to know? Okay, so now I ask. You with me?
Oh, yeah. Now you're getting the truth.
Well, there you go. And by the time I get to the end of the conversation with Richard, with whoever the guy was, I can't remember now.
Person number 3, yep.
Yeah, person number 3. I'm going to ask the same question again. Anybody you know knows? Oh, yeah, that'd be, Karen. So now I'm calling Karen. And she's like, how'd you get my name? Oh, yeah. So what do you want to know about Mario? And let me tell you, quite often, number one, they don't have a dog in the hunt. Right?
Exactly.
So you're going to get a totally unbiased, hey, here's what I would tell you. And we've learned some pretty incredible stuff by the time we got to the 3rd level.
I bet.
I had a guy say, is he out? I'm like, out? Yeah, he embezzled $1.5 million from. And
they're not worried about it making it back to the person because they know that they didn't have you call them. So they're going to give you the truth.
Now, the flip side of that, I've had people say, well, Joe, what job are you hiring him for? I said, well, he's looking to be a manager in one of our real estate offices. And then there's a slight pause and they go, he'd be perfect. Really? Why do you say that? Oh my God, when we were at Nortel together, he was the pseudo manager. They just weren't paying him. He was a great leader. I mean, he got passed over a couple of times. I told him, you need to quit. This is crazy. You're better than that Yahoo they hired.
Yeah.
So you can't do that with everybody, but that was step number 3 with him. How do you go verify the references? What do you do? So by the time you go through all 10 steps, emphatically that you got the right person.
You got a winner.
And by the way, you're going to know by step 5 if they're not. And they will too. They will too.
Yeah.
And so you cut it off.
That's awesome. Hey guys, if you're interested in investing in mobile home parks, which is the business that I'm in, and you want to be a passive investor, just generating cash flow and not having to do the work, but having a strong acquisition and investment partner, go to equitygrowth.net. That's equitygrowth.net and learn how you can partner with me on future opportunities. So Joe, a couple things that I definitely want to get to. You had this awesome partnership, and I've seen a lot of business owners either be made or broken by the partnership that they get into. And you've talked about kind of the different roles a little bit, but would you recommend other entrepreneurs are starting businesses to seek a partner or to try and go it alone and only bring on a partner if they find that perfect person? Like a little bit of partnership tips for people who are starting a business, because obviously you had a great partnership when you started your company.
Well, let me tell you something too. You got to have a fluid situation when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
For Gary and I, that worked very well because, again, I said we're different personalities. And by the way, and I don't think Gary would mind me saying this, uh, poor Gary, I'd already been married, and, Gary was married too, but not near as long as Janine and I. And I'd been buying real estate consistently. Gary hadn't had a chance to do that yet. He bought his home, but I was way down the line. I was ahead of him in the investment real estate side. So when we went to form the company, Gary wanted to start with a very small office. And I told him, look, we've been around this for 14 years between two of us. If we're going to do it, let's go bigger.
Yeah.
I just feel it's a competitive advantage for us to do that. And he didn't have those assets right there at that time, but I did. And I said, I can come up with the money. It's kind of like the Charlie Wilson War, where Tom Hanks is saying, I can get the money.
Yeah.
In the movie. Because Gary didn't know that at the time. And so I was able to amass the capital to give us a much faster start. It was a big help. But 3 years in, the market collapses, and I owned a lot of real estate at the time. And I went to Gary and said, look, it's obvious to me you love the management side of the business. And a lot of our success is going to come in that. That is not me. I'm a sales guy. Today I'm a developer primarily. That's what I do. I love that side of the business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell you X amount of stock, but it's going to be your baby. You're going to have to really drive this bus. I'm here to help. I'm going to keep X% kind of as an investor. And, I primarily help with the commercial real estate side. That wasn't Gary's background. That was mine. Sure. And we didn't really get going in commercial until about 10 years ago. So, I give Gary all the credit. Done a masterful job. He's a visionary. I call him the Steve Jobs of real estate,
In volume, literally.
Well, yeah. Well, Gary's well known. He's up on stage. He's everywhere. Half the agents that work for us have no idea who I am. And that's okay. Well, you know what I'm saying? A really good company, or people go, we did it.
Yeah.
It's not going, oh, the bosses get way more credit than they deserve half the time. So we did that very early on. And that allowed me to get back into sales, get my income level. We were paying ourselves a pittance. It allowed him to increase his salary. So it made sense for us.
Yeah.
And that was just, and as you look at businesses like that, Mario, you see that all the time. And how as they mature, they have different needs.
Sure.
They have different leadership needs. We're still private, which is really unusual.
It is for your size, yes.
Most of the guys that are our size went public a long time ago. Fortunately for us, we don't need to.
Yeah.
We're a very profitable operation, and I'm not going to share numbers, but it's nice not to have to be public.
Don't deal with the public markets and all the people that have their input on what you're doing.
Especially with real estate, because you understand it's a long-term deal.
It is.
Yeah, when the market's hot, you can flip and you can do stuff like that, and we all know how that works.
Sure.
But I've been doing this 50 years. And let me tell you, cycles never go away, because rule number 2 to building wealth in real estate is everything changes except human nature. It doesn't change. And so you'll constantly cycle. It's like a friend, was on the line with a guy yesterday. We were talking about the multifamily market, apartments. And he knows, like I do, and of course I can do this on the screen here. Like you said, here's demand, here's supply. Multifamily just dog paddles.
Yeah.
Constantly. Here in Austin, we got way too many units online. okay, rents are going to go down, for 3 more years. No one's going to build apartments, and let the supply catch up with itself. And then all of a sudden, it's like everybody wakes up and goes, "Oh my God,
We need
we're
apartment. We want to
96,
buy apartments. Yeah.
we're 96% occupied. We got to build some apartments." And so, and the other thing, and you know this instinctively, and most of your crowd does too, real estate's a local business.
It is.
And so one of the problems we have now, and we all know this, we have a 24/7 news cycle, right? And this really started with cable news. I would tell you that CNN was the bane of our lives, because after they report the news, well, they got another 10 hours, they got to fill it with something, right? So everybody, that's why politics today, I mean, everybody's up to here with hearing about it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, half of my life growing up, nobody talked about it. I didn't know if you were a Democrat or it didn't matter. Nobody talked about that. And now it dominates the news cycles. And so what happens is you get all these real estate pundits on making these prognostications that no more know what they're doing than the man in the moon. Because I would tell you, real estate, here's the key to real estate. Here's what's cool about it. It's one of the few investments where its value, because it's all about value with real estate. That's the main variable you're trying to find. What's it worth today? What's it going to be worth 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What? Well, the indices that drive valuation, most of it's public data.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go check supply and demand. You can go check city policies. You can find out where the water and wastewater lines are. You can find out about the schools. You can find out about the zoning, all the jobs, all of the things that drive real estate values. You can go get the data. Now, you often need to go get somebody who can interpret that data, right?
Sure.
And part of the issue you have with the do-it-yourself, generation, and really the technology, this is what drives me crazy about the tech guys. They've been trying to get rid of middlemen forever in every industry. Some they've succeeded. Travel agents, they're gone. Because what they did could literally be put on the internet all day long, right? Banking, I mean, it's incredible to think that I can use this to make a deposit.
Yeah.
Don't have to go to the bank. But if you look at the internet is in 4 dimensions. Okay. Think of a square.
Mm-hmm.
And at the top of the square, it's easy. At the bottom of the square, it's hard. On one side of the square, everything is in the cloud. On the other side of that square, it's all physical.
Yes.
So it's like I told a friend of mine the other day, he's a plumber. And he was worried about the internet. I said, Jack, plumbing is so physical. A computer can't change an S-trap.
Right.
In fact, it facilitates you, because if you can build a website and gather testimonials,
business.
Yeah, and every time you have a client, give them a discount if they'll go to, TripAdvisor or Yelp or whatever and give you a good. In fact, do it while you're there and give them the discount right there, because they'll write it while you're there. That way you know it's being done.
Yeah.
Now you're going to build such a robust website that the internet's facilitating your business, but it can't come out and change the S-trap any more than it can do nails. It can't do that. It can't change tires. It can't change batteries. There's a lot of things that are still complicated in the physical world, and they're hard. So there's a corner of that 4-sided world that the internet's never going to take over. And the argument I have is where these guys go, oh, real estate. Well, you're not going to need brokers. I don't think so. Why? Because
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
A real estate transaction is inherently messy. There's a lot of experts you need. There's a lot of pieces to the moving puzzle. And let me tell you one that they never talk about. And that is that for people that buy homes, you're not buying homes that often, but you're doing it methodically the way the technology guys think they can load it into the computer. And you're just going to run over there and look at a home and go, yeah, I'll take it. Well, guess what? Most of the sellers don't want you in there because they don't know who you are.
Yeah, there's risk to them. Yeah.
And there's a risk to them. Oh my God. If you had a world like that, first 3 or 4 guys that get murdered and raped and, big robbery, well, that's going to stop real quick. But the reality is figuring values takes a little work because there's a lot of indices you have to take into account. And that's
It's an
why
art. It's not just a science. There's art to figuring out valuations and everything.
Look,
anybody's ever done it knows it.
It's the same thing if I'm a gemologist, okay? There's cut, there's clarity, there's carat size. There's several things, there's several aspects to it. And I want an expert who does it a lot, who's got the street cred to be able to say, I was in Africa in July. We went on safari. Well, of course, I'm in Tanzania, so I'm going to take mama down and let her buy a nice Tanzanite gemstone that you can bring it back and turn it into a ring, right? Because that's where you get Tanzanite.
Oh, yeah.
But I want a jeweler who we could trust down there. You with me? I'm smart enough to know I need a really good guy who can explain this value. And it's just like a house. Even more so with commercial property, because there's a lot of things more so to commercial. But even just your basic house is impacted by a lot of different things. So it's never going to be that easy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when Zillow came out and they had their estimates. I'm like, okay, what do you do in a state like Texas that has a non-disclosure law?
Makes it a lot harder.
Well, our deed says for $10 another valuable consideration. You have no idea what the buyer bought it for, and you can't find it. It's nowhere to be found. And there's a bunch of states out there just like that. So that stuff doesn't work. They go back and they say, well, here's what it was listed for. Well, that doesn't mean jack.
It also reflected in their investments, in their investment business as well. When they started buying homes, that flopped because, again, they were trying to use a technology as their platform to do it. And it's just too local of a business, and there's too many moving parts, and there's too many people and people related issues involved too.
Well, Mario, and you know this, and most of your listeners know this who own real estate. One of the hardest ways to make money in real estate is buying older property and rehabbing it. And why? Because until you go in there and tear up the walls and stuff, you're not really sure what the scenario is.
A lot of surprises.
And any good broker worth of salt will tell you, yeah, when they come back and give me the bid and it's a remodel job, just take it and multiply it by 2. And then you're probably right.
Yeah.
I mean, and so my point is, when all of a sudden these businesses start announcing, oh yeah, don't list it with a broker, just call us and we're going to come in and buy it and we're going to rehab it and then we're going to sell it. I can't remember who it was that went broke, the big one that went broke. But I remember turning them to some of my guys going, are these guys nuts?
Yeah.
Have they never done this for a living? And this is their business model? It reminded me of Warren Buffett back in 2001. When all the crazy, WebMD, Pets.com, all that stuff came out. And they asked him, they said, why aren't you investing in these companies? And he said, as only he could say, I don't understand their business model.
Yeah.
I don't understand how they're going to make money. And
those numbers don't make sense.
Well, and so my point is when all of them announce that, again, the markets do this, right? So when the market's up here, they might be able to get lucky, but once that market does this,
that all the flaws begin to show. Exactly.
Yeah.
They all begin to show because it wasn't really built in a flexible way that could actually be successful in a downward trending market. Let's talk about that briefly, because you've been through many market cycles. Not to date you, but you have, right? And you've run a successful business through all of them. So for the investors and the brokers who are out there today, it's, Q3 2024. And they're looking at the market, and it's very different than it was a year ago. how should people be pivoting in general in their business to be able to stay ahead and stay in business when things change?
Here's a couple of rules of the road, okay, that I've always believed in. Rule number one is all real estate is local. All right. So you who are sitting in the Hudson Valley, and you who are sitting in Jacksonville, Florida, and you who are sitting in Napa, and you who are sitting in Austin market can have totally different markets, totally different supply and demand, totally different job opportunities. That's the first thing you look at to see, okay, where does it look like it's going to go? Now, that being said, sometimes you do have black swan type events that occur, and we all just went through one, and that one is the one that's impacted the office building market. And to me, that's a real one. That's real.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when the pandemic hit, before the pandemic, if I was in New York, I got on the train or I got on the subway, stopped off at Starbucks, went up to the 20th floor, opened up my laptop, and went to work. Then the pandemic hit. The only difference was now I got out of bed, brushed my teeth, fixed my own coffee, went into my little office area, opened my laptop, and I went to work. And so all of a sudden everybody realized, not much has changed. I can do everything right here on my laptop. Now, granted, maybe not everything. Maybe I had to go in the office, one day a week or whatever. But I think what the pandemic did is it woke everybody up to this brand new digital world. It's just like Zoom. I can't remember the one that we used before Zoom. I can't even remember it now. It's gone. But it was there, but none of us really used it. Of course, it was clunky. The navigation wasn't good. But then all of a sudden the pandemic hit and everybody's talking about Zoom. And we're like, hey, this is pretty cool. I don't have to fly to Raleigh. I can get these guys on the screen and we can share the diagram and look at it. And so my point is, in that category, things have changed. That definitely things have changed. Now, single family, no. We're still behind, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, depending on who you read. But it's evident you've got a shortage of housing. Two things are evident to me. One, you got a shortage of housing, and two, everything's expensive.
Yes.
The pandemic and all that, because of scarcity, those numbers have continued to go up. I mean, when we were here in Austin, Texas during the pandemic, and a home would come up we had a month and a half of inventory. That's unheard of. A normal balanced market has 6 months of inventory.
Yeah.
We had a month and a half. The minute a home would come up, cars would line up on the street like planes at LaGuardia. Well, when that's going to happen, what's going to happen to sales prices? They're going to go up. You don't have enough stuff. It's classic definition of inflation. Too much money chasing too few goods. There you go.
Yep.
And with the supply chain issues, no wonder we got this inflation. The government dumped $2 trillion in. Oh my God. So
kind of predictable. Yes.
Well, and let me tell you something too, Mario. It only seems bad because we've been living with quantitative easing for 12 years. I mean, the government was throwing money into the markets forever.
All manipulated.
So we're holding 2% and 3% rates. When I got into business at the age of 19 years old in 1973, interest rates were 7%. Nobody thought they were high. They didn't think they were low either. It was just the rate. That's what it was. It oscillated between 6 and 7. Never got into the 5s. And it was only 12, 13 years ago. All of a sudden it started to drop. And we're like, wow, this is. And so part of the issue you have now with these notes going bad, wherever they're going bad, is because everybody used cheap money.
Yes.
But they didn't. These were not 30-year permanent loans on the commercial stuff. The stuff turned over every 3 or 4 years or whatever. And now rates are going up. And then there's other things that have occurred. Insurance has gone up. And that's supply issues. It costs a lot to buy a car now. And my wife bought her a new RAV4. She drove a Lexus for 17 years. Loved the car. And she can't buy a new Lexus because she can't see out of it. They're so big. Cars are, the hoods are big. And we're sitting in an RX 350. He says, honey, I really can't see the road very well. So we ended up with a little Toyota limited hybrid RAV4. Great little car, perfect for her. She's just driving around in town with grandkids anyway. But the damn car is $42,000, $43,000. It's crazy how much. So she got on the fender bender in Houston the other day. She and another lady were trying to occupy the same lane at the same time. Didn't work. So we had to get the fender repaired. It was $10,000.
Jeez.
To put the new front fender on.
Inflation is real.
That's 25% of the value of the car
Yeah.
that we bought it for. And so I'm talking with a good friend of mine in the insurance business. He says, Joe, USAA in 2023 lost money. First time in the history of the company that they lost money. Why? Because things have gotten expensive.
Interesting.
And
yeah,
so,
because keep up with the premiums didn't keep up.
Yeah. And so, if you look at real estate categories, it does worry me in the long term when I look at the cost of starter homes. How do we hold those numbers down? How do you keep those first time buyers in a situation where they can do this? Because they're also grappling with student loans. But this only cropped up in the last 15 years. Colleges have got so expensive now.
They have.
And, there's a lot of people out there hauling that debt around with them, and it impacts the real estate market.
It does.
But that being said, in the long term, it's an adjustment period because of all the cheap money that we've had for so long.
Yep. We've been on the meth for too long.
Eventually, you got to remember something. I remember when Susie Orman, the lady from New York, when like 10 years ago or 12 years ago, she stood up on stage and said, I just don't think owning a home is going to make a lot of sense. These millennials, they're just going to want to rent, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, not really. Once you have kids, the desire to own a home and have a yard and have a place for the dog and the kids and all that. And when the pandemic hit, you had a lot of people going out of these major metropolitan areas towards smaller cities. I think that's going to continue. I don't think that's going to stop. And so I guess what I'm saying in the long run is you've got a bit of an adjustment period right now, Mario.
Yes.
But it's going to get back to normal.
Yep.
The only thing that's hurting us a bit is it because these values have got so much more expensive. It's going to take time to flush that out. Because there's a lot of young people today that if they don't have their mom and dad's help, the baby boomers helping them, they can't afford to buy.
Yeah. And actually that's really a great answer. Is you're talking about positioning, right? Position yourself. And I always tell people when they're looking to decide what type of property that they should be investing in or to change the type of property that they're going to be investing in, is I always say, figure out where the market is going. Okay, where's the economy going? Are people getting wealthier? Then you want to own Class A assets because they're going to spend the extra money. If the economy is going in a downward direction, people have less cash in their pockets, then go invest in things that are going to benefit affordable housing. There's a lot of different businesses that actually do very well when the economy is struggling. Position yourself and buy real estate that is going to be positioned to profit and thrive in a downward trending market. And like what you're saying with office, it shifted, right? It shifted because of a change that was really uncontrollable, but there's actually some opportunity there, right? So if you're getting into the real estate, then you should really be looking at places that you can buy cheap, buy good deals. And so some of those problems for the people who are in it, they're stuck. But if you're getting into it now, you should be looking at those as opportunities to potentially take advantage of.
Yeah, one of the other rules is location is important, but it pales compared to timing.
Absolutely. Timing's
so there's a time to be in the market and there's a time to go fishing.
Yes.
And what we've learned is it also depends on what asset class you're looking at. Okay, different asset class. Like today, if I found a really good RV park site, I'm a buyer.
Yes.
Because I think the RV business, it's a good business to be in. Now, it can get oversaturated a little bit too, but
Yeah.
in the long run, that's just like mobile home parks. That's a good business too. There's always going to be at the lowest part of the food chain, and for retirees in Florida, that's not going away.
Yeah.
But there are areas like today, it'd be data centers, it'd be small industrial space. And by that, I'm talking 3,000 foot user. I mean, I'm here in Austin, Texas, and we have Prologis and all these guys coming to town building these huge industrial. Oh my God, the buildings are 100,000 feet. That's not where the demand is.
Yes.
The demand is in 10,000 feet or less. That's where the demand is. And if I'm building that, I could lease that out all day long today. So there are always niches in the real estate asset classes that if you're paying attention to, that on a local basis, they're going to do well. Or like you say, as Gretzky used to say, you skate to where the puck's going to be, not where it is now, which is exactly what you're saying. I'll look at retail, the physical retail, the tire store, the where they got to go to you to see what it is or buy it. That's doing great. Down here, retail's hot as a pistol. We can't build enough of it in the right areas. And so, again, you got to look at by location, and you got to look at by asset class, and you got to look at it by timing, supply and demand. Nobody's doing apartments here right now because we got too much supply already. So, okay, that's all. And if they're doing office, they're doing it in the suburban areas. The other thing you're going to see, and you're already seeing it around the major metropolitan cities, is the live, work, play master plan concept.
Yes.
Where I'm working, where I'm living, and I'm playing in the same spot. We got developments like that popping up all over town. And it makes sense. It makes sense. Now, a lot of that's driven by density. Certain cities where you have high density, the live, work, play really works well. Less so in a place like Texas where everybody's got a car and we're used to driving everywhere. But in the major metropolitan areas, those live, work, play scenarios, they do well. That's why everybody's buying the old enclosed malls and totally revamping them.
Yes.
You can put senior housing, you can put cold storage, you can put 5 different uses in a major mall because the parking is there and the location is perfect.
Yep.
I mean, most malls always had awesome locations.
They do.
And it doesn't work now with a bunch of inside stores. So they just go in there and revamp the things. My gosh, pickleball courts. They're building pickleball courts inside these old retail strip centers. And they sell beer and they sell beer, wine, and they're making a fortune and they're doing great. Parking's there, courts inside.
What are you getting into, Joe? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What are you getting into? And I'd like you to talk a little bit about your fund because you're in a unique world.
Here's what I do, Mario. I'm a land guy, okay? And here's why. So I'm training in Asheville at the KW leadership group the other day. And one of the guys walks up to me and says, in fact, it was one of our female agents. I really like her, Jamie Amidon, sharp gal. She comes up, she says, Joe, I'm in a wedding in 60 days. And the bride, her dad is a small builder. And he's thinking about selling this homestead, which was on 75 acres south of Raleigh, between Raleigh and Garner. I know this area well because I opened the Raleigh office back in 2001. So I know the Carolinas like the back of my hand. Great state, by the way. And I said, well, Jamie, how much does he want? Does he want to sell? Does he want to JV it? What's he want to do? And she said, I don't know. I'll talk to him. Well, she called me back and said he'd be willing to look at doing a JV because it's prime single family. Oh, my God, prime. It's been in the family 85 years. And we could have gone in there and been his JV partner. He would have thrown the land in. We could have entitled the land in Wake County. It would have taken us 24 months. I can tell you, I know how to do this. We do this a lot.
Yeah.
And you would have been able to generate probably close to, $15 million in profit on the deal by flipping this over to Horton or, NBR. We got a ton of builders in the Raleigh area. They're all out there looking for stuff. They don't like to do the entitling though. There's a lot of work to that. You got to know what you're doing.
It's very local.
When we do that, we're experts at that. We know how to do that. Takes patience, takes political connections, takes all of that. But they would much prefer to give us a price on the finished lots. You guys go do it, get the roads in, and we're ready to go. I can do that. But the key is we have the ability to find those kinds of deals because they're all off market. They never hit the market. It's because our guys are embedded across the fruited plain and they know these sellers. So when I go train around the country, I was just up in Ann Arbor to watch Texas play Michigan. So Friday morning, what do you think I did? I went to our Ann Arbor office and the co-founders coming to train for an hour and a half. We had a ball and they loved it. And of course, at the very end, what do you think I told them? Guys, when y'all come across a really nice tract of land, that you're looking at it going, gosh, if I just had the money, call me.
Yeah. You've got the platform, and that's incredible. You've got more people out there than any other company in the world talking to owners of real estate. It's an excellent, excellent platform to work off of.
And so, Mario, about a year ago, I was sitting with a good friend of mine, Diego Leyva. He's our guy in Miami. And Diego said, Joe, you know what you need to do? You just need to go create a land fund. Just create a blind fund. So next thing you know, we were up in New York talking to the guys at Greenberg. And they said, look, just set it at 150 million. Above that, you got all kinds of reporting you have to do to the SEC, blah, blah, blah. Just go to a $150 million fund and create some classes. And that's what we did. And the investors make a great return. It's the European model where I don't get any of my money back till they got all their money and we pay them a preferred rate. And then we give them a percentage of the profits. And we've been doing this. I've been doing it deal per deal per deal for years. And generally our return on capital is anywhere from 22% to 40%, depending on how good the deal is, that we can find. Sure. Some of them were just off the charts. Worst deal I ever did. We got over our skis a bit. It took longer, we thought we'd be out of it in 2.5 years. And Jesus, it took 5. But we ended up making, I think we made 8% on the whole thing. And this is at a time when savings rates were like 1.
Yeah.
So all of my investors, all of my investors kept saying, Joe, quit beating yourself up. I mean, the deal went to hell and we still made 8% on the deal. So, and by the way, they were in several of our deals that we made 32 and 35%. Sure. So they were happy about that. But again, it's because of the deal flow. And we traditionally, I only try to stay in the hottest markets, which we can do. Today, that would be Florida, North Carolina, Texas. That would be the first places we go. Then we look at Tennessee, South Carolina, Colorado, although you got to be careful. Things can get kind of expensive in Colorado. I mean, when you're buying property, you're looking at the timing, you're looking at what you're buying it for, and you're looking at the terms that you get. So you really want to try to control those 3 as best you can. And we're in several deals now. The fund isn't, because we just started the fund. We just started doing the fundraising.
Yep.
And by the way, let me give you there's a website everybody can go to, and it's really easy. It's joewilliams.land. It's pretty simple. If you go there, the website, it basically explains everything, and they can look at that. But you know, what I see happening now in the market, I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see some really cool stuff pop up.
Yes.
And some of it's going to be distressed stuff. Because when these developers tend to get into trouble, Mario, it's because either time or money. I mean, one or the other. And developers, God bless them, give me 10 developers in a room. 2 of them are really sharp.
Yes.
They don't ever get into trouble. They know what they're doing. 2 of them have no idea what they're doing. We just got a call on a 92-acre tract up in Waco, close to Baylor University, and that's exactly this guy. He was great at raising money, did not have a clue what he was doing. So we're going to see if we can help that seller out. That's not a fun deal. That's more a brokerage deal where we got to help him. But there's no question in my mind, most of these guys get into trouble because their time frames get stretched out.
Absolutely.
And so 2 out of 10 know what they're doing. 2 out of 10 never should have started. Of the remaining 6, 4 of them aren't really developers. They're just guys with money.
Yep.
Okay. They know how to hire people, but they don't always hire the right people. And so they can get into trouble too. And so it's just, listen, the deal flow that I see man, I don't know how to go. I had a guy call me the other day. Actually, this was 6 months ago. And he said, what can you do with 3,000 acres in Napa, California?
A lot.
Well, now keep in mind, first rule of real estate is you got to go walk it physically. Okay.
Yeah.
Today it's nice because I can go to Google Earth. I mean, I can do things technology wise that we didn't used to be able to do. Today I can look at the topography on Google Earth. I can look at the history. There's a lot I can do with my computer right here. But when a guy says 3,000 acres, is it a flat 3,000 acres? Is most of it up a hill and he's really only got 200 acres below? You never know. We got a call from a guy who's got 10,000 acres in Belize. Now, I don't know jack about Belize. I've never been there. I have been to Guatemala, which is next to Belize, but I don't know anything about Belize. But this guy's got 2 miles of frontage on the Caribbean Sea. Well, that's intriguing.
Yeah. Talk about location, right?
Yeah, is it a deal or not? Don't know. So we evaluate when this stuff comes in. It's a very involved process to get it into the pipeline, to go look at it. And most of your listeners totally get this. What we do, the reason I wanted the fund is so we know we have the dry powder behind us.
Yes.
Okay. So let's make an assumption. Let's say I raise 150 million. Well, only about 135 million of that's actually going to go into property problem. Okay. And it's probably going to go into anywhere from 5 to 6 properties. The average deal we see is probably anywhere from 15 to 25 million.
Mm-hmm.
We're buying some property right now in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. It's not the fund. It's just me and a group of investors. 365 acres, incredible piece of property. We've already got the builder lined up to take it all down. That's how you de-risk a deal.
Sure.
That's how you go do real estate deals.
Yeah, you line up your exit up front. So
well, with single family, you can do that.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, Joe, this is just a perfect example of when you talked about, positioning. Essentially, you've positioned yourself to create that liquidity within your fund to be prepared to buy distressed assets, because we've talked about the debt and we've talked about how interest rates and balloons and things like that work. And now you're talking about developers who maybe made mistakes on their buy. They don't know what they're doing, whatever. And it's pretty clear that they're going to be in trouble, when a lot of them will be in trouble as those loans mature and they have to go renew them with new debt. And that's going to be you're going to be in a great position to go and help those people out. Right. And by doing that, it's a great opportunity for you.
But the whole key, Mario, is this: how do you find out about that deal?
Yep.
That's the key. It's kind of like a good friend of mine. He works with one of the big operations. They work with BlackRock, and
Yep.
they're huge. They're God, 100 times me. But he said, Joe, here's the funny thing: you find out about it before BlackRock does.
Yes.
And so all of our guys, we just taught them, when you find out about this deal, let us know. Because it's very easy for me to put the real estate agent in the deal. We look at them and say, what do you want, a commission, or you want to go in with the deal? Some of our experienced guys go, put me on the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
It's a
in there,
no-brainer
baby.
for them. Get
It's a
equity
no-brainer
for
for
bringing
them.
the deal.
And here's another perfect example, and you get this. So you remember Sam Zell in New York?
Yes.
Great guy. I mean, if you're like me, I've admired Sam for
Me
years
too.
now. He passed, I guess, 9 months ago or something. And yeah, great guy. Anyhow, he used to do a deal called iGlobal. It's a one-day big real estate extravaganza thing in New York. And I have no idea, but I ended up on stage. I don't know why they had me up there, except I can
I
pretty
do.
much get up on most stages because of who I am, right? So I'm on stage. I did my little deal. Later that afternoon, I'm at the reception. And I'm having a drink with Diego and a couple of guys. And this guy walks up, clearly sharp guy. He says, Joe, I wanted to meet you. My nephew just went to work for you guys in Kansas City. And then he goes on to tell me, listen, I buy bad notes, bad developer notes from banks. That's what I do. He lives half the time in Mexico, half the time he's in the US. But he's got all these banking connections. And he says, I'm a perfect guy to help feed stuff to you in the fund.
Absolutely.
And of course, how did that all get started? Because he knew who we were.
So
And
brand.
the other thing
Platform.
I will tell you is when we get leads on deals, a third of them are family related. Where it's the nephew and it's a family related deal. So that
Mom and
just
pop.
gives us an automatic in.
Interesting on that too. That's very much like the mobile home park space. Our sellers are, for the most part, mom and pop owners. A lot of times, longtime owners who developed it with their bare hands over, a period of time. They've owned it for 40 years. Valuation, not quite their thing. Operations, not quite their thing. So they leave a lot of meat on the bone. They just need X dollars to retire. They have a motivation, and you can provide that what they need, get them what they need, and at the same time often get a great deal on the assets. So very similar.
Let me tell you a great story, and you know this because I don't know if I ever shared with you what we did on the luxury RV park in Fort Myers. Did I ever tell you that story?
Now I'm in Naples, so tell me.
Well, I'll send you a link and you can look it up and see what we did. Anyhow, so I ended up talking to a couple of national RV park experts, and they shared a stat with me I thought was fascinating. They said, number one, Joe, and this was RV parks. So I don't know if it has anything to do with mobile home parks. But they said the average, I think they said 75% of all RV parks that are owned. First of all, I said there's 20,000 of them out there. 75% were owned by mom and pops. And what you just described was the exact of what you find, right? He said the other thing is only 1,400 of them around the United States are set up with the correct technology today.
Yeah.
And he was including also the size of the pad. Because in 96 they came out with slide outs.
Sure.
And he said most of these can't really accommodate the slide outs, much less have an internet system that works, a Wi-Fi system that works. So yeah, that is, mobile home, RV park, love the space,
Yes,
love the
land.
concept.
It's the same seller, right? The
Yeah,
consolidation is happening in the mobile home park space. It's starting to happen in the RV space. It's kind of it's pretty mature in the self-storage space. Land, I don't know if land ever really 100% consolidates because it's so vast and there's just so many opportunities to buy from families and, just
Yeah. Well,
mom and pop owners.
what we always say, remember NAR's basic line? When you walk in the NAR building in Chicago, they have their moniker up there that says, "Under all is the land." And really, what they're saying is, before you start any project, you got to go get the land. I don't
Yep.
care what it is you're building. Land is the central component. That's why we love staying in that space, because I don't do a lot of vertical stuff.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to get the land, get it entitled, go find the buyer or the developer for it before we're even out of the deal. But you're correct. Land is the basic foundational piece that you got to go get for whatever it is you're going to do. And
the use changes over time. You build something there, you think it's going to be there forever, and give it 50 years and everything around it changes. And now there's a new use for it. There's new demand, a totally different buyer profile for it.
That's the thing. And you know this about mobile home parks and RV parks. And that's what I've always said. You can go in there and get 45 acres, put an RV park in. 25 years from now, the city's now grown way beyond it. And now you go in there and knock everything down. Not that there's anything to knock down anyway, except for the clubhouse. And then boom, you've got a whole different use. And that was always the benefit of buying versus leasing, land leasing and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I would say the old statement, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Yeah. Today, because you got a 24/7 news cycle, and it's just like, I spoke in New York at the ZAC, I can't remember what they call it, Shack School of Real Estate, right? They had me there. I was up on a panel and I was talking to the students. I said, guys, here's the beauty of real estate. Okay. And I walked in there that day. I had a Wall Street Journal with me. And on one part of the journal, there was a bear up there, going, oh man, the market's going to collapse in the next thing. And then in the corner on the same page, there was a bull. Oh man, these are great times. And I looked at him and I said, guys, here's the problem with the stock market. Who do you believe?
Yeah.
Unless you're in those corporate offices with those directors at NVIDIA, you really aren't 100% sure which way it's going to go.
Yes.
But with real estate, if you look at the basic things that create value, you can pretty much predict that ultimately it's likely to continue to go up.
Yes.
Because the good Lord only made so much land. And your population is still increasing in the United States. That's why, I love, my father-in-law, just an incredible guy, Mario. He died in 2015. He was 97 years old. Farmer and a rancher in central Louisiana. Just a great guy. And he looked at me one day and he said, I could solve the immigration problem just like that. And I said, what would you do, Lucian? He said, number one, I'd open the borders, but I put a system in place that fast tracks these guys. And they got 3 levels of coming to America. Okay. Level number 3 would be the most difficult level where they become a citizen. And you take them all the way through the deal. But he said, I got a level 1, it's a work visa. He said, because, I've got 3,000 acres out here. We're growing corn, soybeans. I got a lot of, normal people in Louisiana. They're not going to do this work anymore. And they don't, by the way. He has all Mexican help that helps him. And they're all legal. Yeah. They go through a government program they use. But he said, these guys are hard workers. I live in Texas. The Mexican population has built everything here.
Yeah.
And they have for years. And most of us speak enough Spanish to be able to be on a construction site and converse with them. So, let's face reality. But like he said, they got to pay taxes and we got to know where they live. It was funny how he could lay it out. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3.
This is thought about it.
Yeah. and most answers are simple in nature.
Yes.
the problem we have with the government right now, not that we want to get off the subject, but let me just tell you, when I go to a high school and I talk to kids, and I say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Nobody says, oh, I want to be president.
Nobody.
Nobody wants to be a senator. Nobody wants to be a representative. They want to be Elon Musk. They want to be Jeff Bezos. They want to be Joe Williams. Oh, and by the way, they want it tomorrow.
Of course.
You know? and so what's happened on a political level is we don't get the best people in office anymore. So
yes,
to get that fixed, you're going to have to bring respectability back to politics. And that's not going to happen overnight. It's like turning a big aircraft carrier on a dime. It ain't going to happen that fast. But it does need to happen.
How does that happen? How do you get people who are looking out for the country again to go for those positions?
What did we talk about? What was the fourth stool to the business?
Culture.
Mario. Yeah. Why don't you create people who grow up and say, you know what? To have a really great society, it starts with me. It starts with me understanding how do you make a country work really well? How do you make a community work really well? I would tell you that everybody first needs to learn that they are responsible for their own actions. That's a key principle.
But Joe, that's gone. Like personal responsibility is a thing of the past.
Well, then what you're going to have to have.
Absolutely. What you just said is something that people have not heard for a very long time, but it's so true.
Well, but what I'm saying is, if you did 10 things, you could fix politics, okay? But it won't happen until we all stand up one day and go, you know what? I am responsible for making sure that the community works well.
Yes.
And here's my part of that responsibility. And it's got to be taught to the kids, and they have to understand it. And, you know, some of it's historical. I mean, I hate the fact where everybody's going around and trying to rewrite history.
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of stupid. I mean, you're not going to change history. It is what it is, but you better learn from it, right? And there's enough people that have said that for years. Those who don't learn from history are going to have to repeat the same stupid mistakes. So, not that we're here to talk about that, but I'm just going to tell you, the greatest generation created the wealth that you and I now are able to take advantage of. And they did that because when they came back from World War II, they got to work with their communities.
Yes.
You know, when Kennedy made his speech, don't ask what your country can do for you. What can you do for your country? Everybody said, you know, he's right. We need to think about that. And
culture.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset. You're going to have to change the way everybody thinks between their ears. But you could literally do 10 basic things to turn this whole thing around. But a lot of it starts with being able to teach your children today responsibility and how all of their actions have consequences. And as crazy as it sounds, yeah, it looks pretty crazy now. Nobody's paying attention. Not if we start teaching the young people right now so they get it. And by the way, I run into a lot of millennials. I'm really impressed with them. They think about things. And some of these are very good things they think about.
That's good to hear.
What they got to learn is that, look, we've got a constitutional republic here, and we do elect people to make decisions. So the key is, how do we set it up where the very best people go run for office? And I will tell you, as long as we have a deal where it costs $1 billion to get elected, that's just a big mistake.
It's going to always, with that scenario where they have to have billions of dollars to get elected, you're always going to have someone in your back pocket telling you what you can or what you should be doing once you're in office, because they have to buy them.
Some of the very best people, Mario, are not the wealthiest. I mean, you know, when I teach kids, I teach our agents this too, by the way, I draw a big bell curve on the whiteboard, and I go, here's the world's population. At the very left-hand corner of this bell curve, there's 0.25% of the world's population. They are the most incredible people in the world. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the richest, by the way, either. But they're incredible. If you're lucky in your lifetime, you might meet 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you'll know it when you meet them, or shortly thereafter. You'll just know it. At the very end of that scale, that bell curve, there's 1/4% of the population, and they're horrible. They're evil, and they're never going to change.
So true.
They're Boko Haram. They'll kill you. They'll take everything you have. It's never going to change. That, by the way, you young people, that's why you have a standing army. If you're a nation, human nature never changes. You better make sure that you can protect your nation from these people, because whatever you have, they want. Not going to change. There was a great book that I read. I was in France at Napoleon's tomb. Which, by the way, if you guys have never been to France, go see Napoleon's tomb. It is one of the most incredible buildings in the world. I had a gift shop there, and I bought a book called A Little History of the World by E.F. Comberg. This is a guy, he was a teacher in Germany, and he got an assignment to write a book about the world history, 2,000 years of history, for 6th graders. And he only had like 60 days to write it. So he wrote this book, and the vernacular literally is see Dick run. I mean, because 6th graders have to be able to understand this.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out the book was such a great read, it became a million seller. And I read it sitting in business class, flying all the way back from Paris to New York. Thoroughly enjoyed the book. But what I got out of the book is that in 2,000 years of history, there probably been something like 520 major wars. And why? Because of that little group sitting at the end of the bell curve. It never changes.
So
It never
true.
changes. Human nature's not going to change. So what I've always said about the bell curve is you got this 1/4% on the good side, 1/4% on the bad side. Then there's another 19% here on the good side. And that's the 20/80 rule, right?
Yes.
That's the people you want your kids to hang with. They're positive, good attitude. The glass is half full. Let's keep going. That's those positive people in the world. But at the back end of the bell curve, there's another 19%. And they're the people that work at the state. And they're officers on your local HOA.
Yes.
Okay? I mean, they're just not happy. They don't have a great attitude. Oh, woe is me. Not my fault. And then there's 60% of the people in the middle. And these people basically just follow. They're just there. It's the bulk of the population. Okay? Sometimes they trend to the positive. Sometimes they trend to the negative.
But they fall.
We had a speaker who came to one of our KW family, our convention. I mean, and we have like 12,000 agents in a room. It's a big room. And this guy, he said, you have the group on the left, the positive. He said, that's the oh yeah. And the ones on the back end, that's the oh no. And the ones in the middle, that's the okay.
That actually is true in a lot of ways in life.
Sure.
That is so true. You've got the positive, the negative, and the people who just follow. Like they're
Yeah.
just there. They're the okays, And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. Number one, don't be on the negative side of the bell curve, and also avoid that okay. Be in the positive side.
Well, I think success, it's kind of like Bain told us, doing the future self exercise.
Mhm.
It gets you thinking about, why am I here? What am I doing?
Yes.
Okay. And, I would tell you, from a religious standpoint, all of us hope for the best, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm in church every Sunday. My little Catholic wife has me down there, and I've seen some miracles in my life that I can't explain it.
Yes.
Except it was a real miracle. but we don't really know. It's a hope we all have. But if that doesn't come to be, then you need to take advantage of where you are and what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Okay. They interviewed a guy. There was a guy that did a thesis. It was incredible. What he did, he interviewed 100 people who were 100 years old. This going back 20 years, by the way, when it was rare to get to 100.
Yep.
Now, I think you're going to see that a lot.
Definitely.
My wife's mother is 98. She's in great shape. She'll easily make 100. He interviewed him and he asked him one question. He said, if you could do it again, what would you do? And he said he got 3 answers back. Answer number 1 was, I would have risked more. I would have asked Kathy out to the prom. You know, when I was in high school, you didn't have social media.
You actually had to do that.
You had to pick
You
up
earned
the phone
it.
and you had to call Taylor Swift to see if she would go with you to the prom.
No swiping. It's you actually have
no swiping.
You have to put the pitch together.
Yeah, no asking your friend, can you ask her? We didn't have that. You had to make that call.
Yeah.
And that's what they meant by saying I would have risked more. I would have, you know, when I was thinking about leaving accounting, I should have left accounting, you know. Second thing they said is I would have lived every day better. You know, when you're my age, I'm 71 years old. I get up every morning. I go, thank you, Jesus. I get another day, you know.
Yes.
Because I have friends that are passing away now. Now, typically it's cancer, which is, you know, comme ci, comme ça. You don't know. You hope you don't get it, but they can't tell you why you got it.
Yeah.
So it makes you think about that every day. Trust me. Third thing is, they said, I wish I could have left something so everybody knew I was here.
Interesting.
Pretty cool.
Yes.
And, you know, and look, as they say, you come in with nothing, you're going to go out with nothing. So, you know, like they say, a hearse doesn't follow you to the cemetery.
Yeah.
So figure out, and this is something that Dave Ramsey, I've always been a Dave Ramsey fan, although sometimes Dave can get a little goofy here and there, but
yeah.
But his basic message is don't be stupid with your money. You know, if you're going to go into debt for a reason. Don't buy a bunch of toys and, you know, have big credit card balances. You know, and I read the book, The Millionaire Next Door by Danko. The thing that resonated with me was that most millionaires are just regular people. You know, they buy their suits at Macy's. They wash their own car. You know, I mean, they don't spend their money crazy. They look for bargains. What I got out of that book was raise your daughters like your sons. Because if you don't raise your daughter like your son, you're going to get your daughter back your whole life. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. They had a whole chapter on that. That if you're going to teach money principles and work philosophies to your sons, teach those to your daughter too. And the best idea I ever got was from John Maxwell. You know, John Maxwell, great guy.
Yes.
He's spoken many times. I loved his concept about don't put kids on an allowance, put them on a book reading program. and we asked him, what do you mean? He said, pay them to read books.
That's good.
That was a great idea. He said, now, by the way, you can't pick all the books.
You know? Dang.
You know, let them pick some books that they would like to read. You know, take them down to Barnes and Noble and say, okay, here's your budget. Go find yourself 3 books. And then when they read them, you pay them $10 or whatever. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't be responsible for doing things around the house. They can do that too. And you should do that. Sure. I mean, I have 11, 9, and 7-year-old grandsons that do their own wash. And why? Because my daughter is inundated with laundry. And finally, a good friend of hers told her, oh, no, my kids do their own laundry. Oh, really?
Teach them responsibility too.
Well, yeah, when you think about it, they can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 10 years old, Mario, when my dad died. Massive heart attack at home. It was just mom and the 3 kids. we immediately all went to work. My mother was a Depression era child herself, just out of high school degree. She ended up working retail the rest of her life because she had to. And it wasn't a bad thing, by the way. We all went to work. I was a bottle boy when I was 12 years old. Worked every day since. But the point is, I was doing my own laundry when I was 13 years old, and it wasn't a big deal. Learned how to iron, learned how to sew, learned how to do all of that. What did you say? They need to learn those responsibilities, how a family unit can work together. And by the way, you need to be able to allow the kids to work with your success. I learned a long time ago. I mean, I was in real estate sales for a very, very long time. Only in the last 10 years have I not really been in the field. Well, I mean, commercial deals. We still do commercial stuff. But anytime we closed a house or something like that, we all went out to dinner, including the kids. And the reason was we would often get calls at home, and my kids would be answering the phone. And so we taught them, Williams residence, this is Grant. How do I answer the phone? Was your father there? Yes. And so I would take them with me to open houses and stuff. I mean, my son was in the office all the time as a youngster running around when we started the company. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. You remember UPS used to have those waybills, the 4-part form?
Yep.
I don't know, Mario, you look pretty young to me.
I'm pretty young, but I think that was tail end of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you
I
had to
saw that.
fill out the form, and you didn't want to use an ink pen because it didn't always go down, to
Sure.
the 4 sheet. So I bought a little typewriter, like an IBM Selectric, and we had it. And we would type them up. And my son was 9 years old, and he walked in one day, and I was typing up a waybill, and he says, "Dad, what is that?" And I said, "Well, this is a UPS waybill." This is no. He said, "That machine." He'd never seen a typewriter.
That's hilarious.
And so I said, "Well, yeah, you want to type?" Oh, yeah. He had a ball, man. He would come in, he would type on the typewriter. I mean,
Put him to work on the typewriter.
He was the new generation that had a computer at home. He'd never seen a typewriter. Anyhow, funny story.
Joe, I gotta say, we've covered a lot of really good things. We've covered some really awesome topics. We've covered commercial real estate, residential real estate,
Yep.
your story, basically lessons on life, some really good lessons on life too. And I want to point out, the humble nature that you have. I can see why your business has been successful because you're a people person, and I can see that you're genuinely interested in helping people, and that would be something that would just be electric through an organization and help explode an organization that's based on people, right? And growing a team of people. So you've given some really good nuggets today. And I know that you said your website is joewilliams.land. If someone's interested in your
that's
fund,
that's the land fund, right?
if someone,
they can go in there and look at all kinds of stuff.
who should get a hold of you, and how can they get a hold of you? Like if you were to put
I mean, basically, if first of all, it's interesting because we set up an aggregator process with the fund. Let me explain that.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of our commercial guys, and the reason we did that, the entrance into that fund is $1 million. So to get into it, they have to come up with $1 million. Well, we've had a lot of people that call my commercial guys, and they'll go, "Look, I don't have $1 million sitting around, but I got 4 or 5 of my buddies that I can easily raise the money."
Yeah.
So we have an aggregator model that they can use, where they form up their own LLC or even an LP. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go get their 5 guys. They raise their $1 million, and then they go put it in the deal. And what they do is they shave off a couple of the points, because here's the example. We split profits with the $1 million group. That would be a Class C investor. Yeah. We split profits 65% to them, 35% to us. But if a guy's only got $250,000, he can't get in the fund. So what my commercial guys do, they go back and go, "Hey, 4 of you guys put up 250. And what I'm going to do is give you a 60% return for the profit." Now, we also pay him a preferred rate of SOFR plus 2%. So today that would be a preferred rate of around 7%, which is good. So it means their money is making good money while we're, holding it or we have it in a property. And then once they get their money back, then we pay them the preferred rate and then we split profits with them. But when you're an aggregator, that's what they do. I've got a lady right now. She's raised, I think she has 4 $5 million investors. And at the $5 million level, we pay them 62.5% of profits. So what she's doing is she's going to these $5 million guys. Because she's raised 4 of them, she gets to the 20 million level. Well, that's an 80-20 profit margin.
She's making the spread.
So she makes the spread, and they're tickled to death because they're in the fund. She's making the spread. We're happy to do it. It works.
It's a great fund of funds model is basically
it's a fund of funds model. In fact, I'll give you a great example. We ran into a guy, and these guys are huge with the NBA and the NFL. And they have all these players. I don't know how many they have, Mario. It's a bunch. And these guys looked at me and said, Joe, we can raise 150 million just with our professional guys. In fact, I'm laughing because like it's on my tab here, because they want me to go to the Super Bowl. What we're going to do is put a program together, a 90-minute wealth building primer for athletes. Because, you got this stuff, Mario, you got the friggin' NIL now.
Yeah.
I got a backup quarterback here at the University of Texas, Arch Manning. He collected $3.1 million in NIL money. He's the backup.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he's a Manning. And by the way, he's a great kid. He's just the nicest kid. But my point is, what's he doing with his money? Well, he knows what to do with his money because he's part of the Peyton family. And, between Eli and his dad, and, he's got people who can take care of him. But what about the guy who's collecting $1 million and he does not have the parental people back there that know what to do with $1 million. And so what happened was we ran into these guys. It was at a family office club event.
Yeah. And
we started talking, and I made a point. I said, what's crazy about being a professional athlete is I've been having this conversation with the NFL. In fact, I was up in Philly talking to 60 NFL guys. And even they said, when we were rookies, there was nobody sitting us down going, hey, here's what you need to know, because you and I both know it's a dangerous minefield for these guys.
Yeah.
Because of a lot of reasons that we all in our head instinctively know. It's one thing to get raised in a family like you and me. It's another thing for a lot of these guys that don't have that adult supervision or historical perspective with what do you do with sudden wealth.
Yeah, they blow it. A lot of them blow it.
I play racquet. I've been playing racquetball since college, right? You and I talked about this before we got on the deal. One of our guys, Davey, in fact, I played with him this morning. He worked for the Texas Lottery for 20 years. He knows the stats. And like he said, it's incredible to think that most lottery winners, 5 years, 7 years down the road, they don't have it anymore. Yeah. Well, it is and isn't. Anybody that knows anything about wealth building and wealth management, it doesn't shock me. It's the 20/80 rule, which never goes away. Why? Because human nature never changes.
It's also funny how wealthy people typically don't play the lottery. So, it's because they understand their money and they understand the likelihood of getting it versus the person who's just throwing their money at something, hoping someday they do get lucky. And what do? They keep throwing it out.
I would look at you and tell you, without a doubt, it's the worst thing that these states have ever done to keep the poor people poor.
Yes.
I stopped at a 7-Eleven 2 days ago to grab a drink. I was going down to look at one of our construction sites. It was hot. Still Texas in September. Still hot here. Stopped in on a woman in front of me who clearly is not in the same wealth category as me was buying $375 worth of lottery tickets. And I just sat there and thought, this is terrible.
Just light it
This
on
is
fire.
terrible.
Just light the
That's
money
where
on
they're
fire.
getting their money from, people that no more should be buying that stuff than the man in the moon.
Yeah.
It is a travesty. It's the student loan travesty all over again.
Free credit cards, free t-shirts with a credit card, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, my kids went to Catholic school because Janine's Catholic. So that was number one. She's South Louisiana, Central Louisiana. Louisiana has no property tax. The property tax is abysmal. So
Yeah.
they have no money for schools. So everybody gets their kids educated through the Catholic Church. That's what they do. So in the Catholic school here, right down the road, where all two of my kids went, one of the courses they taught them it was a money course, and they taught it to the fifth graders. How to balance a checkbook. It was great. All the things that they need to know about basic money. How to buy stocks. They would buy, when they started day one, they gave them $10,000 of play money. And they didn't let them invest it until like 2 months in, when they taught them a little bit about the stock market and ETFs and all that kind of stuff. And so then they got to invest their play money. And then they could watch it. And oh my God, probably the best course they ever took.
Yeah, most schools don't have that.
They don't do
Which is
it.
why their people are out buying lottery tickets, right?
I mean, and even Mega Millions. My wife, you know, when it gets up to like $1 billion,
Yeah.
and she'll say, "Oh, honey," because she can't help herself. She's in it for the bargain. Go buy $20, right? And it's just money I'm throwing away because I'm
Sure.
looking at it going, honey, the odds are 15 billion to 1. Doesn't matter what number you want to give them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I would say that, like you said, the majority of people playing probably shouldn't be playing. And
No.
if someone who's got some money goes to the casino or goes and plays, the lottery here and there, yeah, they already know that they're just throwing away. It's entertainment. But I agree with you 100%. Like you've got people who are literally taking the money that they have for things that they should be doing other things with, and putting it into lottery tickets on this hope and this dream that they're going to get rich. And that's
And what we got to be
unfortunate.
able to do, Mario, what you're going to have to be able to do, like they say, a little revolution is good from time to time.
Yeah.
And it may take that in the United States, because as I say, when I go and I look at my 10 things that we need to do to turn the whole ship around,
Mhm.
most of it gets based back on common sense. Having common sense leaders that can look at something like a lottery and go, this isn't helping. And go look at the stats. This isn't helping anybody. Now, they're never going to pull the stat as to what level of wealth for the people that are buying. They don't have that stat. If they did, everybody would go, this is crazy. It's just like I've been a proponent of the flat tax for years.
Yeah.
Just give me a 15% flat tax. Everybody who makes 30,000 or less, you pay $1,000.
Yeah.
That's it. We can get the tax from everybody else with a straight 15%. You'll have plenty of money to run the country. It's just like term limits.
Yeah.
There's not anybody that I can stop in America.
Term limits, definitely a checkbox. That changes the whole country with one thing, but the people who have to vote for it are the ones that are
It's been a checkbox for 30 years. Everybody's for it. What's happening? Why don't we have it?
Because who has to vote it in? It's you're voting in for your retirement.
Yeah.
Yes. It's powerful stuff. Joe.
All right. Well, we've done enough now to write a book. So
yeah, no, I'm gonna go transcribe this and sell the book. So hey, thank you so much for spending way more time than you promised, and this has been just a super big delight for me. I know that the listeners are going to get a ton of value from this. And again, thank you. This has been awesome, and looking forward to doing more things with you, Joe.
Absolutely, Mario. It was the best contact I've ever made at the bar in California. So.
Me
But
too.
good luck to you, man.
Thank you, sir. You too.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got out of this as much as I did. I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review so we can reach more people. Jump over to mariodattilo.net and find out what else I got going on. Be sure to connect with me on all the socials, and I'll see you on next week's show.